Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of the SME Connect. The SME Connect is a show that is geared to supporting businesses with the right conversations in the SME world, the world that we all believe controls or has a huge influence in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, the show today is geared around the oil and gas sector. This is a sector that in Uganda has been around for quite some time. Since 2006, when commercial deposits were discovered, many people tried to get into the oil and gas sector. Many of the people who tried to get in, some of them made it, some of them did not actually make it post exploration and appraisal phase. What happened though for many is that the lack of information, the lack of ideas of how to get into the sector impeded on their ability to join the discussions or to join and participate in the sector. Today's show is going to be talking very much about your ordinary business person, your ordinary supplier. How do they get into this sector? This is a sector that we know is going to have a huge influence in Uganda for the next few years. We know that right now we're gearing towards a final investment decision. Which final investment decision will lead into the construction phase of the project? Now that is where the opportunity is, and I want us today to really talk about this opportunity, to talk about how we can get onto this opportunity and how we can maximize our companies, SMEs, and our manpower to be able to engage and make the best out of it. On this show today, we have two interesting gentlemen who have been in the sector for quite some time. The gentlemen I'm going to introduce today are seasoned oil and gas specialists who understand the sector quite well. I am also happy to have operated with one of them very closely at his time at Tullow. The first person I'm going to introduce to you is Hilary Bamulinde. Hilary Bamulinde has over 13 years experience in the oil and gas sector. He was the first indigenous procurement officer at Tullow Oil, Uganda. He's a man who saw it first. He's a man who promoted local content first. While we guys were getting into the game, he was already in the game. Hilary, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tony. Happy to be here.
Pleasure. Our second guest on the show is a very seasoned gentleman as well, Jimmy Akaya. Jimmy Akaya is the man behind E360. He's a director at E360, a leading company in training on HSE, bid management, procurement, and so on for the oil and gas sector. 600 businesses through our Stanbic Business Incubator, and train them on one of the most critical, if not the most important subject, which is bid management. Bid management, if you want to get into the oil and gas sector, is very crucial for running your business, and Jim has been at the forefront of this. Welcome, Jim, to the show.
Thank you, Tony. We are glad to be here.
Right. So, gentlemen, I just want to now make this a very cordial conversation because this is what the SME Connect is all about. How are you managing to run your businesses in preparation for the oil and gas boom that is potentially coming in the few months or years to come? I will start with you, Hilary.
Sorry, we didn't catch that, Tony. Who are you starting with?
Yes, Hilary. Hilary, you can start.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. I like telling my friends that the oil and gas industry is nothing like we've ever seen before. Once it kicks off, it's going to flip the economy, it's going to flip perceptions, it's going to flip lifestyles, because there's going to be so much money coming into this economy. And like you rightly mentioned, Tony, whoever is looking to tap into oil and gas money needs to get in at this coming stage.
Right.
The money is going to be made during building of infrastructure. Once everything has been set up and the oil is pumping, you only make money if a government constructs a project or offers you a service. There will be very minimal opportunities post this next phase, which comes after FID. And hopefully, as most pundits have predicted, we should see FID probably by H1, H2 next year.
Right. Fantastic. Let me now get back to Jim. Jim, you have been in the oil and gas sector for more than 25 years or more, I believe. You have seen this happen in Nigeria. You have seen how local businesses have struggled to get into the oil and gas sector and have finally come into play in the big sector. Your company has also participated in this area here. Give me an idea of what it takes to participate in the oil and gas sector before we go back to Hillary and ask those particular questions about how best a Ugandan company can get in. Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. One key thing that I would like to first talk about, the Uganda oil and gas industry is real. So first thing that we need to take away from our minds are the myths that go with the oil and gas industry. If you ask some average people in Uganda today, they'll tell you the oil has been drained to Kenya, the oil has been done a lot of things. Those things are myths. But the problem with the myth and how it affects our mind, it makes us not to be prepared. And that's the bane of potential Uganda companies. We need to get prepared. And the reason is that the oil and gas standard is very high. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the standards are not going to be lowered because we are operating in Uganda. It's an international standard. Therefore, the responsibility of every Ugandan SME, every Ugandan company, is to up the game and attain the standards of the oil and gas industry. The good thing about the industry is that if you aim for the standards of the oil and gas industry, even before the industry comes, you will excel in every other sector because the standards are probably more than that. Therefore, what is it that the average Uganda company has to do? All of us. And that's why the delays in taking the FID, a lot of us consider it a blessing in the fact that if this had happened today, there are still, even though the awareness has been on for the past few days, there are a lot of Uganda companies that are still not ready. Therefore, what is required for the Ugandan company is put our acts together, go for compliance with the standards. And once we go on compliance with the standards, try to work together and we will harness all the benefits of the industry.
Right, so let me go back to Hillary. Hillary, you were at the forefront of this from the start. I remember working with you while you were at Tullow. I was at Total. And you were at the forefront of local content, pushing for local businesses to understand the opportunities, to understand what potential they can or have within the oil and gas sector. Tell us that story. Give us a brief history of that story. And tell us what you also did to make sure that locals participated in the sector at Tullow.
Okay. By definition of what a local, or what we call a local Ugandan company is, that definition has changed over the last 10 years. There's been so many drafts, there's been so many changes, but we think that we finally have a law that prescribes what a local company is. And one of the first tenets of a local company, as per the oil and gas law in Uganda, is that the company must be incorporated in Uganda.
Okay.
The company must be adding value to Ugandan goods and services. This company should be employing at least 70% Ugandans. And very critical, this company must be approved and registered on the National Supplier Database by Petroleum Authority of Uganda, PAS. That is a local company as per the current definition.
Right.
Big possibility, a few changes may be made in the future as the project starts rolling. We hope not, but that idea gives you what a Ugandan company is.
Okay.
Of course, the debate has been raging about ownership, about Ugandan companies should be owned 51% by Ugandan native. And then questions came in: who is actually a Ugandan native? Is it just a passport holder? Is it a national ID holder? And yes, the debate has happened for quite some time, up to a point where the lawmakers zeroed down on this particular definition. Just a brief on local participation in the industry.
Yes, I want you to give me your history.
It's been very limited.
Rest.
When I worked Tullow Oil 6-7 years ago, we had providers of what seemed like best services, like truck escort, journey management, being done by expatriates. Right now, people say, "Oh, how could that happen? Everyone can do it. Locals can do that." But trust me, it wasn't as basic then as it might appear now, because the standards were pretty much unknown to most Ugandan companies. Some of the EHS standards that are basic now, some contractors back then were pretty much unknown. They've just been learning on the job. And yes, quite a good number of Ugandan companies have upped their mark. We've seen a number of companies grow through the ranks, and they can pretty much compete for oil and gas jobs. And like Jimmy said, to that standard, to that international standard within Uganda and within the region. So I can say with confidence that yes, Ugandan companies are getting there. We're not pretty much there yet, but we are much better off where we are now than we were 5 years ago. And I'm hoping that this discussion will show a few more things that we need to do
to get there,
to prepare ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to get there. Now, let me go back to Jim, because you see, Jim, you've been training companies for quite some time. I think our first interaction was when you were doing some training for GIZ on the same topic, bid management. And then you also came to the Stanbic Business Incubator and you were doing the same. Jim, what is your experience with many of the local companies that you've trained in terms of their readiness? How has it been for you as a facilitator, but also what would you recommend in terms of them getting ready?
So thank you, Tony. There has been an evolution in the training, bid management training, especially how do we address oil and gas bids. And I want to say that we've made significant progress. Like you just mentioned, we've trained over 600 people and companies in Uganda. And it's important for us to not just that we are training them, we're also providing a support system for the bid companies. And what are the things that the first thing we try to embark in the fact that a lot of things that we do in the bid comes from the mind. And that's why it was important for us to make sure that we have a mindset change.
Yeah.
There are a lot of myths that are out there regarding bid. Some will tell you that even before the bids are published, that they've already been awarded to other people. So these are the things and what are the dangers of such myth? By the time we have those in our mind, we don't give out our best when it comes to responding to bids. And when you don't give out your best, in Uganda, the second best is not good enough. You have to be the best to partake in that. So, and when we do that, we try to, once we have that mindset change, the next thing is that bidding is a competition, meaning that you need to outwit the other contenders to win. And how do you do that? You go ahead and make sure you get all the skills. And that's why we are trying to give them all the tips, all the skills to do that. One other important aspect which we try to promote is the idea of collaboration. And in Uganda, the platform is set. I'm sure that Hillary can attest to that. The IOCs, the big players, want each and every one of us as Uganda companies to come together. Because at times, collaboration is probably the only way for us to get to some of the opportunities,
so Jim,
individually we cannot.
When you're talking about collaboration, are you talking also about joint ventures?
That the competitor is not our enemy. Today, most times we look at our competitors as our enemies. Therefore, it kind of bridges, it kind of stalls the idea of collaboration with them. One of the key things is we need to be open to collaboration, making sure that when we have the opportunity, we can actually come together, especially if two companies have capabilities and they don't have, each of them don't have the capacity. The only way that we can come together and pursue some opportunities is to come together. Therefore, it's important for us as Uganda companies to understand the fact that we need to up our game. We need to be open to collaboration because the IOCs want it.
So, Jim, you were talking about collaboration there, and you're talking about partnerships and all of this. Can you explain more about the joint venture partnerships? But again, you also talked about some myths that some of the companies you engaged with had. Explain more about these myths before we go to Hillary, because Hillary has dealt with these companies before. Tell us about those myths, and also tell us about these joint venture partnerships you're calling for.
So the most important, the greatest myth that we see is people always say that before the tenders are published in the newspapers, that the things have already been awarded.
Right.
And it's a very serious myth. And that's why I always tell our delegates that there are a lot of good things that happen in Uganda. And one of the good things that happen in Uganda is the fact that bids are published by law, meaning that because of the PPDA requirements, it's a requirement that bids are published. Yeah. Therefore, the first way to harness opportunity is even to see the opportunity. And that's why we say, if there are no two newspapers you're gonna read as an SME, you're gonna read the Daily Monitor of Tuesday and then the New Vision of Thursday, because that's where you have the opportunities. Also, we shared some other sites that people can see, because that's the first step to see the opportunity. And the good thing about Uganda is that these opportunities are published. I actually give them example of my country of origin in Nigeria. It's not by law that you publish it. So we are complaining here that probably 10% of them are given away. What if there is a 0% where you don't even see them? So that is a very good thing that has happened in Uganda. However, let's say that there are even 10% in those categories. There are also 90% that are real. But if we allow those myths to cloud our sense of judgment, the danger is that when we are responding to them, then we don't give it out our best.
Okay.
And when it comes to bidding, 80% is compliance. 80% it will not win the bid. You need to aim for over 85% and above to be able to win.
Right.
That's number one about myth. Yeah. And there are different kinds of myth. Some will even say you have to have a brother, or you have to have somebody in the committee. And so there are a lot of things that are probably possible. It takes a corporate corruption for a bid to be given to somebody who didn't participate, because that means the tender team has to be corrupt, the evaluators has to be corrupt, the people that are reviewing them has to be corrupt. I'm sure Hillary will tell us more about how they make the bid decisions. That means the board has to be corrupt. But if we have all those things at the back of our mind, and if we allow them to cloud our sense of judgment, we're not going to give our best to bids, and that means we are not going to win.
Okay, so Jim, I'm going to come back to that. And again, I would like, of course, to thank our sponsors or our partners, CloudCo, who have made this possible to air it to your computers, your TV screens around the country. But Hillary, I want to ask you something very particular. You've dealt with these businesses before, and Jim has talked about the laws and the regulations that have come into play to support these businesses. When you were things, we never had that opportunity. These laws only came into play around 2013. What was it like for you at Tullow? I mean, what are the do's and don'ts for, let me just break it down. What are the do's and don'ts for a local business to be able to engage in the oil and gas sector?
Thank you, Tony. Back in the day, it was pretty difficult sourcing for some of the requirements for the oil and gas industry because of the very high standards. I've worked in other industries where it might be unheard of to buy a safety shoe for, say, $40. But in gas, the standard safety shoe was always $150 as a best price, just to give you an example. And that meant that it was pretty much difficult to get service providers. Even for things that people look at and say catering is a basic. Everyone that cooks food thinks they can provide camp catering, which is not right.
So
the
standards.
Camp catering we're talking about.
So standards are key.
Yeah,
Standards are key.
is quite sophisticated in nature, and is a specialist. Is a specialist job. I know Jim will get into this, but I'll give you my do's and don'ts of a local company in trying to secure oil and gas work. And I'm giving this as the perspective of the person on the other side, the buyer's perspective.
Yes.
And first and foremost is you should understand the terms and the conditions of the tender. It's a Ugandan mentality for and give you what they think you need. This doesn't work in oil and gas. The tenders are usually very, very particular. You need to read and understand them. Actually, I would say we need to adopt what most Indian companies do to get these big infrastructure projects. Most Indian companies have a team in office dedicated to preparing tender documents. They don't wake up and say, so can you work on this, throw in a few documents, and then we have a bid together. No, you need to be able to understand the terms and conditions of this tender, word for word. We say, read that document word for word. Two, have the financial capacity to do this job. I would say don't bite more than you can chew. It's exciting to get a $2 million contract. It's exciting to get a $10 million contract. But don't take it on if you don't have capacity, because you're going to kill your chances. You're going to kill your chances for future work. You're going to kill your references. And the oil and gas industry is not that forgiving. If you mess up a job with Total, it's highly unlikely you'll get a job with Sinok. It's highly unlikely you'll get a job with Ammo Energy, because these guys talk to each other. These guys cause reference across board. Prepare applicable documentation. In my experience, I've seen this very happen now and again. Most people recycle tender documents. They have a set of documents that is printed and piling somewhere. All they do is put a cover page and send. That won't work for you if you're looking for oil and gas.
Right.
Submit your best price. In my experience, we call it a Ugandan thing. We do it quite a lot. People will throw in there and hope that there will be negotiations where they'll be given a chance to reduce the price.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my friend, that may not happen. They may not necessarily be looking for the lowest price, but they'll be definitely looking for value for money. These are high value contracts. They don't have time to stay. They have a budget of $50 million. They have 3 bidders coming in at 55, 60. They won't have time to negotiate with a guy of 100, because if I can reduce your price from 150, my gut feeling is that you're definitely cutting some. You're going to cut some corners. So I'll be jittery to deal with you. So I would say offer your best possible price. Your responses should follow the tender structure. If the tender structure has asked a set of questions 1 to 10, answer them in that exact format. Don't throw things all over the place, because they don't have time. They don't have time to start looking for your responses. These tender documents are usually very huge. They could be looked at by teams, not in one place. One team may be sat in Paris, is in South Africa. They are all evaluating the tender. If your tender is all over the place, highly likely you get failed. And unlike the tenders in government where you appeal and they go here and there, these tenders don't have a lot of such opportunities. So you need to take time to put something good together.
Right.
And this is usually my what I say, the star, whatever, which is usually undocumented. I say, if you want to steal the show, indicate to the buyer how you can help them reduce risk, minimize maintenance costs, and meet their deadline. These are things they may not ask for,
but they love
you
to hear.
can go out of the box and show them how you can help them go over and above their objective.
Thank you so much, Hilary. We're going to go into and when we come back, we're going to go back into what it takes to put up a very good bid. This show can be seen on our different social media platforms. You can go to SME Connect on YouTube, and SME Connect on Facebook. And then also you can also watch it on Tony Otoa, that is off Twitter. And this shows are always on YouTube for you to watch anytime. So you can go back and watch all of the other shows that we've done before. So let's just take a break and we'll be back in a few. Welcome to the SME Connect. Welcome back from that break. With me, I have Hilary Bamulinde, a very seasoned procurement guy. Worked with Tullow Oil, the African or Ugandan to hold that position in Uganda. And we never had laws or regulations that guided national content or local content in the country. And with him, we also have Engineer Jim Akaya. He's worked for several years in the oil and gas sector, from Shell to Schlumberger, and now running an interesting company that does a lot of training around HSE, which is health, safety and environment, and bid management and procurement. And these two gentlemen have been giving us interesting highlights of what it takes to get into the sector. But I just wanted us now to engage with some questions that came in. Jim, this question goes to you. I know you've been training several companies. You just mentioned that you've trained over 600 businesses in bid management. The question that has come in is, how does one prepare a winning bid? And Hilary, I'll also ask the same question to you, but I'll start with Jim. How does one prepare a winning bid in the oil and gas sector?
So thank you, Tony. Hilary, in his statement, before we had the break, articulated all those things. The key thing, I'll probably say, key thing is client focus. Focus on the requirements of the client.
Right.
And that means that you don't need to focus on your features. Let me give a practical example. When we had the Concorde plane, the greatest feature of the Concorde plane is that it flies faster than sound. But to the big guys, to the Prime Minister of UK, for instance, the fact that it flies faster than sound is not important to him. What is important to him is that he takes off from London and is flying to New York, a flight that normally takes like 7 hours. In 3 hours, he's in New York. So that is the benefit. And that's why we need to change our focus when we are preparing bids from our features, from us to them. It's important. Right. Hilary highlighted all those things. They are key things. The other one is value for money, meaning that for every benefit you're going to provide, make sure you quantify it, because the client wants to see numbers. Once you quantify those things, it starts making a meaning to the client. Another one is that the person that is evaluating your bid is not a robot. That means that it's a human being like each and every one of us. Therefore, the evaluator passes through all the emotions and things that we pass through. The person might be looking at your bid, and at the point he's looking at your bid, he will get a phone call. At the point he's getting up your bid, he might be looking at your bid at 2 p.m. after a lunch of Matoki when he's tired. Therefore, you need to make sure that your bid is appealing and structured in such a way. Hilary mentioned it, but I'd like to bring it up because structure is important. The evaluator has no time to go and look for anything. And if you are given the evaluation criteria, fair enough, beautiful. But if you're not given the evaluation criteria, imagine that in your mind, because there is something that the evaluator is looking for. And bid evaluation is a game of mathematics, meaning that it is not subjective. For every bid you're gonna have, whether it's published to you or not published to you, there are some criteria that they have, they put some weightings and they give you score. So your criteria and the score you have and the weightings you have give you a total mark. Therefore, you need to have that at the back of your mind, even if they're not published it. So what we are trying to say for you to put a successful bid is, the mind has to be you need to have a picture of an evaluator in your mind, and you're writing your response, looking at that evaluator. As you're doing that, you're asking yourself, as I'm writing this, does it appeal to? There are a lot of other technical things that we'll put together, but these are the key. How do you move it from being you to them?
Jim, so many people will say HSE is something that's very critical in a bid for an oil and gas situation or an oil and gas contract or a bid. What would you say about this before I get to Hillary? HSE, health and safety.
HSE, it's critical. The reason it's critical is because the oil and gas industry is one of the riskiest place to work. Therefore, if anything happens in the gas industry, any incident, and you come out losing part of your body, you are probably lucky, because most things that happen result in fatality. However, it is one of those places to work. Just like if we look at the transport industry, everybody says, if they ask you which one is the safest one, still the air. The air travel is the safest one, even though if one plane drops, hundreds of people will die. But if you frequency of occurrence, that's why safest.
Yes.
The same thing in gas industry. And that's why they don't joke. The industry does not joke with health, because they understand the risk is there. Only way to overcome challenges in the oil industry is to make sure that the health and safety is impeccable. Therefore, there are two main things you need to look at as an SME, as a company, when it comes to oil and gas: quality and health and safety. Those two are critical parts of the game, that there are no shortcuts towards that. And today, when we look at bids, a lot of the health and safety things that they ask us, we just write NA, 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 just like Hira is saying. We say not applicable. We are the people making the decision for the client that it's not applicable. They were asking us questions.
Right.
The reason we are writing not applicable is because either we don't know or we don't have what they're asking for.
Yes.
So we are not going to change that. The only way for us to work on it, I know it's challenging because it's something new that a lot of people do not go. And that's why we even encourage the SME owners. You're not going to be an expert in health and safety, but try and get yourself a basic course, basic knowledge. And the thing about health and safety, the oil and gas industry will drive health and safety in every sector. So even the food industry, it's not going to run away from upping their standards in terms of health and safety. Construction industry, we've already started seeing it. Even though the FID hasn't taken place, but oil and gas infrastructure development has started. Therefore, the health and safety aspect of the oil and gas industry will impact the nation for the good. However, complying to them is tough, but doable.
Right. Okay, Jim, I'm just going to park it there. Let me now go to Hillary. Hillary, you know where the low-hanging fruits are when it comes to the oil and gas sector. You know where the opportunities are because you've been there. You've supported businesses to actually see where these opportunities are. Let's imagine I'm a layman who has never engaged with the oil and gas sector. What do I have to do and what opportunities are out there for me, especially now as we prepare for the development phase?
Okay. Basically, there are 4 major oil and gas projects that will happen post FID, and I'll quickly run through them so the viewers have an idea of what's coming up. The first project is the Tirenga upstream. This is a project that is located in Bulisa, all the way across the Nile to West Nile. It will have 36 well pads with 400 wells. It will have 230 kilometers of in-field pipeline. This is the pipeline that will be connecting the different wells within the field to the central processing facilities. And it will have an industrial park. A central processing facility, if I'm to put it in a layman's language, is like a mini refinery. But it's a very huge in structure by all means, or by Ugandan standards. The second project is a Kingfisher upstream, which is similar to Tirenga, but much smaller in size and is located down south near Kanyataba. The third project is the Kabale project. This is where we're going to have the refinery. We're going to have arrival of the 2 feeder lines from the 2 central processing facilities coming into the refinery, and this will also be the departure point for the export pipeline. And the fourth project is the pipeline itself, which is a 1,450 kilometer heated pipeline running from Hoima all the way to Tanga in Tanzania. Along the pipeline, we'll have pumping stations, and we'll have a marine terminal in Tanga. This is going to be a unique pipeline. It's going to be the longest heated pipeline in the world. Some people might know, our oil is waxy.
Very true.
At room temperature, it's more or less like shoe polish, the old shoe polish kiwi that we used to use in boarding school. So it will be heated to maintain the oil in a form that makes it transportable by pipeline. Now, those are the projects coming up. Total value of these projects, we're looking north of $20 billion. Lifespan execution of these projects for 6 years post FID. Now, that gives you an idea on how big
it's huge.
These are. We are talking Uganda's GDP, more or less 2-3 times over. Happening in a space of 4 or 5 years. So it gives you an idea how much this is going to change the economy and our lives along. So some of the opportunities, just go back to your questions, that will come up with the industry. And if I'm to draw back to what Jim mentioned earlier on, the opportunities that will come from the international oil companies are going to be so huge.
So huge,
that very, very few local companies will be able to partake in them directly. And that will mean that it is inevitable that we will have to form joint ventures with other companies. Either we have to join up as many local companies to partake in these jobs, or we'll have to link up with foreign companies and perform some of these tasks. And along the way, maybe a year, 2 years down the road, we'll have acquired the skill sets, we'll have acquired the capital to be able to execute some jobs on our own. But initially, the Ugandan mindset of my own thing, I'm the CEO and the shareholder, I'm the boss, will have to go away. Like Jim said, mindset has changed if people are looking to get into this industry. I'll break down a few opportunities for you, just to give people an idea on what is coming up.
That is the cream.
Yes, we anticipate that there will be 5,000 expatriates coming into this town. Of the 5,000, about 4,000 will be working in the field, on and off. And about 800 to 1,000 will be in Kampala. That alone gives an idea how much accommodation is going to be required. All the nice fancy apartments we see in the likes of Kololo and Naguru will be taken. The people living in Naguru will have to move to Ntinda. An apartment that is 1 million in Ntinda may move to 2 million. So the Ntinda guy will have to go to Nigeria. I like Nigeria people. Don't shoot. Nigeria people may have to move. So that's the multiplier, just to simplify. If you have 1,000 expatriate families in Kampala, you're going to need maybe bare minimum 400 drivers. They're going to need bare minimum 600 house helps. If I came out today and asked anyone among the human resource agencies who can give me 800 house helps that can speak some basic English, that have maybe a certificate in basic hygiene, can make a sandwich, they are not there. Maybe they're there, but no one has that database. So that in simple terms, it gives you an idea on how this industry is going to shake Uganda. Let me just run through the number of opportunities that are coming. Logistics. And when we talk logistics, we know there's aviation, there's road transport. The big things, I don't want to go through them because big possibility the SMEs will not never get that opportunity directly from an IOC.
Yeah, but they can be subcontracted. They can actually come as subcontractors, right?
Yes, there's going to be things like transport of personnel
Yes.
that will require maybe 30, 40 buses. Because these people are going to be shuttled in from Kampala, from Gulu, from Hoima into the field. People will be working 3 weeks on, maybe 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, that kind of thing. So there's going to be a lot of people movement. So there's going to be a lot of requirements for transporting personnel. Handling. If you have all these expatriates coming in 3 weeks in, 1 week out, there'll be a lot of people moving in and out of the country. So there will be a lot of services required to manage these people's arrival and exit out of the country. I've mentioned the facilities are going to be in the field. Very many facilities. These will require security. There's going to be a lot of security personnel, private security personnel deployed in the field. Camp catering services and accommodation, very huge. We're talking a camp of 3,000 people that will construct the refineries, that will put up these CPFs together. Imagine feeding 3,000 people 4 or 5 meals. They actually might go up to 5 meals because these guys work day and night. If they are drilling, that drilling machine never stops. It works day and night, and people never stop eating. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to supply food. I would say for the young man in Noya that is growing his cabbages now, that is into vegetables, I would say start collaborating, start talking to each other. Get a group of 10, write up your company, register it, go on the internet, search on how to preserve food, how do you clean food, how do you package it? Because when these opportunities come, you may not get that contract for camp catering, but whoever gets that contract is going to be looking to buy food, especially from local communities. I remember when we had our camps in Bulisa, we used to shuttle fish from Kampala. But Bulisa is just next to the lake.
I know.
And the reason we couldn't buy it from the fishermen is because it was not clean. So we'll get fish. It comes from Gawa, is cleaned in Kampala and transported all the way to Bulisa. And that shows you that even when you're in the vicinity, you need to work on standards to be able to tap into these opportunities. Tony, you want to say something before I finish?
Yes. No, you can finish before we wrap up. Finish, please.
Okay. There's going to be a lot of professional requirements for professional services like land surveying, legal, environmental. Like, you know, these facilities are going to be located in a very sensitive ecological area.
True.
Next to national park. So
true.
You're going to have a lot of environmentalists looking to catch anyone offside. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for environmental services. Civil works and construction materials. We highly anticipate that probably before FID, there might be an opportunity for what we call a mini FID
and that's very important for people to know.
Infrastructure started.
Yes.
That is things like getting maram in place, getting
hardcore stones and all this,
getting stone quarrying in place, and grading of the industrial park before the actual FID even happens. There's going to be opportunities for supply of materials, that is drilling, production materials. We're talking cement, we're talking steel, we're talking PPE, very critical. And those are some of the things that local companies can get into. So I would say to someone there, if you're thinking, oh, I already supply PPE maybe to the power sector, I supply PPE to some factories in Ruzira, start reading about PPE for oil and gas.
Hillary,
those companies.
Hillary, just before you continue, I think it's important for our viewers to know what FID is in full. That's final investment decision. And then PPE is personal protective equipment. You see, because you're an industry guy,
yes,
you're probably
my apologies.
Go on.
My apologies. Yeah, it's very easy to assume that what you're speaking is basic. And the other opportunities that will be there will be waste management. Waste management, we know we have a good number of local companies that have already set up facilities that are doing some of this work already. But waste management is also another highly sensitive area, and there are going to be major major contracts for waste management. So
Okay.
it's also highly likely that even the local companies that are already set up doing this work and have done some of this work during exploration phase will need probably a partner with a few bigger players, because we're talking drilling waste, we're talking production waste, which is going to be something new in our market. Just that's some of the opportunities that will be coming along.
Okay, now let me just go back to Jim as a way of wrapping up. We have about 2 minutes to close the show. Jim, you have been in this industry for a long time. You've had the opportunities that Hillary has talked about. In the places where you have worked, like Nigeria, it has been a tricky situation for local businesses to engage. What would you advise local businesses as a way of engaging in these opportunities that are forthcoming?
The advice is work together. Even if it's farmer. And the good thing is that Uganda has a lot of advantages. Every trade has an association.
Correct.
Farmers have farm-based organizations. When Hillary is talking about this, the farm-based organizations can come together and become the umbrella to up the standard and then get that. So my advice is work together, improve your standard, focus on health and safety, focus on quality. And when it comes to quality also, right now, being ISO certified, it's potentially, there is an advantage. In the next 5 years, it's probably gonna be a requirement. And why is that? The IOCs cannot check every one of us. It's like an insurance for IOCs.
Oh, right.
They cannot go and audit and check all of us, 1,000 companies, but they understand the ISO standard. They trust the ISO standard. Therefore, if you are, if your processes are aligned to that, they will trust you. Not because they trust you directly, but because they trust the standard.
For the benefit of the listeners, what is ISO? I might know it, but our listeners...
Yeah, ISO is International Standards Organization. Everything about oil and gas industry is international standard.
Perfect.
Who are the people helping us with standards in Uganda? The Uganda National Bureau of Standards. And all the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, the standards are adapted to the international standard. So even if you comply with the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, it is most likely that you have complied with the international standard, because no country in the world, Uganda, UK, write their own. They mostly adapt it to the international standards.
Thank you very much, guys. Maybe just as a way of ending this, I just wanted to tell you a story which I recall, and I don't know if Hillary, you remember this story. I remember there was a time we went to Bulisa to do a little bit of local engagement with the local guys to see what opportunities they could jump on. And we were criticized. I don't know if Hillary, you were in that meeting where we were criticized for getting meat all the way from Kampala, from meat packers. And we were asked why we were not procuring meat from the local communities. So one man called Muzamiru, I think, stood up and said he had enough meat to feed all of us in the camps. And the first question that was posed to him was, did he have an abattoir? Did he have an abattoir? The poor man said he had no abattoir. And what he said was he would easily cut the cow on site and have it delivered. But then, of course, international standards, health and safety standards, it was a bit of a trick. And I remember the first thing was, if we took him on, we would have challenges when it comes to health and safety. So what was done was to actually build him a mini abattoir, tiled space with running water where he could actually cut his cows and deliver to the camps. Muzamir, in less than 8 months, was a flourishing businessman in the Bulisa area, doing so well. Unfortunately for him, like Jim said, he failed to form synergies with other like-minded Ugandans who could support him to grow and sustain his production. And within a couple of months, he ended up failing to produce or supply as recommended and ended up phasing out. What happened? The oil companies ended up coming back to meat packers. So I think at the end of the day, as much as we're talking about these opportunities, it's important for us to prepare. It's important for us to prepare to get our businesses in the right shape. But more so, it's important for us to form the right joint ventures, the right partnerships that will be able to make us handle these contracts that are big, capital intensive, and we probably have never engaged with them at all. So I think it's time for us to prepare. So I would like to thank everyone who has joined us on this very interesting SME Connect, the oil and gas sector, the discussions on how to prepare your business for the oil and gas sector. We would like to thank our partners, CloudCo, and again, you can watch this program or the replays on YouTube channel, our dedicated YouTube channel. That is the SME Connect. And on Facebook, SME Connect, and on Twitter, Comrade Otoa. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.